What are some things that you've done in your life where later on you looked back and you reflected and you questioned, what was I becoming? What was I becoming there? How was it shaping me? I remember I was driving for Lyft, and I picked up this guy, and he was a child pastor, a children's pastor of all people. I picked up this guy, and he was a real cool guy, a real cool cat. He had jokes, but he was very observant. One of the most observant people I've ever met in my entire life. He was what you call perspicacious. He had perspicacity. He had shrewdness about him, very keen insight. He could pick up the tiniest details. And I'm talking about the tiniest. I mean, just my hand on the steering wheel while I was driving him back to his house, his destination. Just the way that my thumb was positioned on the steering wheel and the way that I turned the dial up on the jazz music, he knew what kind of person I was. Like, he could tell my behavioral characteristics. He could break me down like a Greg Myers test. Like, he probably knew my astrology signs and my zodiac signs, and like, just by my body language. It was blowing my mind. I was like, what kind of magic is this? What wizardry is this? Right? What sorcery is this? How do you know so much about me with so little time? We've only known it. You've only been in the car for 5 minutes and you're already breaking down my whole life. Like, how? It was so fascinating. It made me want to study the human body at a level that was like a surgeon. You know, it made me want to learn more about people. And I asked him, okay, you're a children's pastor. I picked you up at this church. Like, what else do? You got to do something else. This can't be all that you do. He said, yeah, I do a little this, I do a little that, right? He was very taciturn. He was very furtive. He didn't want to give up the information, but he knew a lot of information about me in our short encounter. And he told me something I'll never forget. He said, hey man, what kind of books do you read? I said, I read a lot of books. I read a lot of this. I read a lot of that, He said, you read a lot of self-help, a lot of personal development? I was like, yeah, I read, Think and Grow Rich, Dale Carnegie's and the Napoleon Hills and the Bob Proctor's and the Law of Attraction, all this stuff. He's like, yeah, you can read a lot of personal development. You can read a lot of self-help. You can read a lot of business books and learn a lot about tactics, learn a lot about ploys, learn a lot about, different instruments, different things that you can utilize and techniques, tricks, tips. But he said, don't worry about all that. He said, young man, I know I have you in age. I'm up there. I'm up there in age. I may not look it, but, I'm blessed to have the years that I have left on this earth. He said, let me give you a little tip. He said, don't worry about all the self-help. He said, read fiction. I said, what? Come again? He said, yeah, man. He said, the truth is in fiction. He said, read fiction. You can read nonfiction, but not too much. Just read stories. Read about triumphs and victories and like people who have gone through things. Because what it's going to do is it's going to work on your character. Who you are at the core, who you are in your heart, it's going to reshape and restructure your character. He said, read fiction, read stories, read novels, read books that are going to take you on a journey. Read books that are like from start to finish, some extraordinary things happen. Don't just read those books that have all these tactics and tricks and techniques. Read the ones that are going to affect you deeply and change who you are as a person. Work on your character, because that will be long lasting. All these other things, they're just going to fade away in the wind. But what remains, right? What have you gained? What is sustained? What is maintained? I said, okay. said, all right, no shame. And he got out the car and, he said, thanks for the ride. And he left and I never saw him again. But I thought about all the odd jobs that I've done in life. And maybe you've done a few yourself. Like, have you been to other places where you didn't really feel good working at certain jobs, certain businesses, certain places, certain employees, type environments that really felt like a drain on your spirit? And you might have needed the money, so you didn't want anybody else to hear it, but it was slowly draining your spirit, sucking the life out of your soul just to be there. And the question is, how was it shaping you to continue to stay there under the circumstances? I remember I did so many jobs just to get the money to stay in a location or to stay in a house or to just to keep up with the Joneses. Some of the odd jobs like poker dealing, bathroom attendant at a strip club, zipline tour guide, and, all these odd jobs, karaoke DJ and this and that. And like, what was it doing? One of my mentors said, don't worry about what you're getting. When it comes to finding a job, when it comes to finding a place of employment, or when it comes to finding your calling, your mission, your vocation, ask yourself not, what am I getting here? Ask yourself, who am I becoming here? Not what am I getting? Who am I becoming? I remember in that bathroom, gentlemen coming in and out. I'm helping them wash their hands. They're at the strip club. People sniffing lines of stuff in the bathroom stall and coming out like ready to go. They're all perky, right? Ask me if I want some. I'm like, no, sir. You need any cologne? You need any candy? They drop a tip in the jar and they're out back into the club, and I'm hearing the music just thumping, and all of the music is just programming me. Cars, clothes, money, right? Money, cars, and clothes, and this and that. And it's like girls and like all this programming. And I'm thinking to myself, is it worth it? Sure, all I have to do is just stand here and they'll just drop the money in the little bucket, but who am I becoming here? I remember there was a guy who came in the bathroom one time. He said he was drunk. He was tipsy. You could tell. He was like, a little sloshed. He was a little slizzard. He was tipping, he was like slipping. But he was just cognizant enough. He was just aware enough to tell me, hey, man, what are you doing here? Like, this is not a place for people like you. Like, I saw you reading that book over here. You don't have to hide that book from me. I saw you reading it when I came in here. Like, what are you doing here? I was like, I don't know. He said, man, this is not a place for people like you. Get out of here. Like, why are you here? And it made me think. Some people come into your life just to plant that little seed and make you think. Right? That was all I needed in that moment. So, do you have moments like that in your life where you have experience, that you are never the same? That you might be in a place and feel all of the blame, but you get to the point where you can never remain. Because it's dousing your inner flame. It's dousing the inner fire. And you might want to retire, So, creating ourselves. The self is not something ready-made. but something in continuous formation through choice of action. John Dewey. We make choices every day that define who we are and what we value. How we dress, what we eat, the kind of car we drive, the quality of work we do, where we live, what we do with our spare time, how we treat other people, how we treat ourselves. We need to make those choices carefully and thoughtfully because this is how we create who we are. Tell yourself, I will think hard about the choices I make today and what they will say about me as a person. One of my favorite video games, BioShock, there was a character named Andrew Ryan, and the quote that forever would shape the course of my life was, "We all make choices, but in the end, our choices make us." So I trust that you got a little nugget from this. I trust you got just a little, tidbit, a little takeaway that you can bring in your day. Let it be something to guide you on your way. Pass it along and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Keep that grateful, thankful spirit. And may the rest of your life be the best of your life.